Okay, reconvening the Joint Committee on Ways and Means and Education. So we will continue with Department of Education's budget requests. So we're on number 47 of table 6.
If we could just finish off on 46 real quick, we have this.
Okay.
So on 46, I do want to clarify the cohort in the Chaminade doctoral program, they still are holding their regular jobs. So it's a school psychologist, a behavioral health specialist, a district educational specialist, an SBBH, someone in the SBBH role. So they are currently in their positions. They're getting their doctorate to move to another class of position. If that doesn't go through, they will return to their current, they'll just stay in their current position. But that will mean we'll still have to send students to the mainland for their residential treatment.
Okay.
Okay, 47, $1 million. This is, I believe, our third request related to athletics. This is for coaches' pay increase. I know the description covers all 3 topics that were covered in our athletics related requests.
48.
48. This is Stacy Kunahisa's area, leadership training for state leaders, complex leaders, school leaders, 9 positions.
What kind of training though? Like training for what?
So one of the things that we're looking at, Senator, is a leader full organization. So some of the things that are listed are school food service managers, school administrative service assistant, the SASAs in the office, as well as supervising custodians. So it's actually the first time we're bringing our classified leaders together. They've never met before as a whole group, and providing building that relationship and connections with each other statewide, and then providing professional development.
Okay, but so it doesn't sound like some of the training when you have with principals or even vice principals is training on how the department works, because you still have department principals and vice principals contacting legislators directly for CIP or all legislative things versus working through your department. So I'm not sure when you guys train, you're still not training them on the things that you guys are having to deal with.
My apologies for them, our principals contacting you. I know that one of the things that
but that's been the culture. So if you guys are creating a new culture,
we are,
but then there's no training for the new culture.
But it's not just them contacting us, we're contacting
Oh,
them.
yeah.
I go visit the schools and I ask the questions, so. Then
Yeah.
I go to me.
Yeah, like when somebody was principal of Waipahu High School.
Yes, we are one of the things that for us, for our department, we want to be sure that we're addressing the needs on our facilities. And so as you brought up, Senator, we are trying to shift that culture.
Yes, I'm just not sure if your training is including operations of the DOE and how to really work through the system versus just the leadership component, because then you're still leaving these other unintended issues.
We do have we do training on the operations. We do have vice principal trainings as well as new principal trainings, and also we do provide professional development for sitting principals. A lot of the focus right now though is on new vice principals and new principals, so that there are as you shared, they're able to then how to navigate the system. And we want to share a little bit more about.
And that's fine. Okay, 49. Oh, this is an old request.
49 is a request for the 2 permanent deputy superintendents and 1 assistant superintendent, as well as secretarial support.
Okay, number 50.
Number 50 is 8 permanent positions for Office of Talent Management.
Why do you need this if you're getting all that IT?
Because of the volume of applications. You talking about number 50?
Yeah, we had that whole discussion about the IT components to help streamline, transparency, efficiency, and then now, because I think there's a maybe misrepresentation that people think when you invest in IT, then we need less people. But in this case, you're going to invest in IT and we need more people.
We're getting a lot more applicants, and I think the vetting through those applicants, the background checks that need to happen. So I think our teacher shortfalls, I think, are diminishing or reducing over time. And you know, Sean's done a lot. Assistant Superintendent Bacon rather has done a lot. Multifaceted approach. The system was one of those. But there is a bottleneck, I guess, being potentially created by having to vet all those applications.
Yeah,
So
but you,
what happens to the position after you vet it at all? I mean, it seems like we give you positions to address it and then it comes down and then now you get another, now we need more people, but you didn't let go of the people that was there to begin with. Right? Because somehow they get absorbed into the system and then put somewhere else and then you got to do more applicants again. That's what happens, right? It's happening at UH, so I would think it's happening with you guys as well. Right, enrollment drops, it goes up. When enrollment goes up, all of a sudden you need more positions, but all the positions you had when enrollment was up didn't go anywhere.
and I also thought that like HR, they have actually assigned people to different complexes as well. So how many people total, I mean, are we talking about when you, in addition to the 8 that you already, in addition to the 8, and how many people do you have?
The complex area, Senator, you're correct, you know, the complex area does have resource people to help support. Some of those areas include screening specialists in personnel specifically, the investigations.
No, but each complex has HR people too. So,
Has HR people that work
but they don't
together
report
with the state
directly to
office.
the CAS. They report to state office.
state, it's a combination both of state office as well as complex area superintendent, depending on the nature of the position at the complex area. Close. The personnel officers report to human resources, to the HR office.
Yeah, so not the CAS.
But work in collaboration with the CAS because they're at the complex area level.
Okay, and I'm still unclear, and I think we talked about this as to the structure of and responsibilities of each CAS and their staff, and then the state staff, because it looks like there's some duplication.
One of the things that we are working on in addressing and in a realignment is we did work towards we are working towards that, addressing that issue. If it exists.
Okay, 51. Oh, you had a question?
Yeah, just a question. I mean, you guys asking for all these positions and you guys are justifying it. But when was the last time that the PUE actually did an evaluation of the sense of being top heavy and keep adding positions? And same thing as my colleague saying, when was the last time did you guys ever do one self-audit or some kind of inventory of, you know, some of the positions that you guys might need or no need and or whatever? I mean,
Thank you
Yeah.
very much for the question, Senator. Actually, we to address that question, we have engaged with the Council of Great City Schools, who the membership includes organizations that are larger than the top, I think 70 somewhat organizations in the country, school districts. And so in us talking with them, they did take a look at our state office personnel.
Yeah.
And we are actually one of the across the largest school districts in the country. We are one of the smallest in percentage of state office support. Am I saying that right, Tim?
Yeah, but like I mentioned, you still have the CASs and their administrations, which, you know, they're not small.
the reason why I bring this up is that I understand he's saying some of the other big schools or whatever. The difference between some of the guys in the continent, the city subsidize the schools. Here, the state is the only subsidizing for the schools. So I'm not saying you guys don't need the money, but I just wanted to know what was the parameters and how you guys came to the conclusion that positions and what you guys are proposing to us. That's what I wanted to know.
It's not the state that decides, I mean, the city decides The state decided that there would be state funding. And that
Or the city, what?
the state decided,
Oh,
But
the
how,
city took on other roles, right?
so that the report that you talked about that said that Hawaii has the small state office,
Mhm.
relatively speaking, but does that include all the CASs as well?
No, that was at the state office.
Wait, no, hang on.
But-
It didn't, Tammy Chun, Deputy Superintendent, the report did also in that administrative counts included our complex area. So it differentiated between teacher positions and administrative
Okay,
positions.
If you can send that over.
Yes.
Listen, then. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay. 51, we're requesting an additional $370,000 in the first year, 382,000 for contracted services. We have to do leave records accounting. It's an ongoing expense, but it's something we don't have a budget for. Before an employee gets.
yeah.
their
So how were you
information
paying
to
for it all this
ERS.
time?
We've been using indirect cost money, and our latest indirect cost rates have been dropped considerably. That's the overhead that can be charged against federal grants. And so we need to find a new funding source. So that's why.
Can I ask, so what do you mean when you say leave and, for this?
The other one is a small portion, 365,000 of this is for G2 audits. So when an employee separates and they retire, ERS needs to get audited leave records within a short window. In order to do that, it's
So
collecting all the records from all
So
the
this-
schools. and-
this also covers for payments because that has to do with no leave, right?
That-
Run out of benefits, run out of leave. run out
It's
of
adjacent. It's adjacent to overpayments.
When you say.
Timely reporting of leaves or untimely reporting of leaves is something that can contribute to overpayments, which is something that we try to
So is this
minimize.
going to cover looking at that?
This is on the back end. There's just because this isn't going to help necessarily address the overpayment issue, because this is for when employees separate and they're going to retire. There are other efforts we're working on for overpayment to
Can I-
minimize that.
Can I dwell on this now since we're
Yeah.
on? Okay, why don't you tell us what is it that you're doing? Because right now you have, as of November, you have $209,734 in overpayments. That could pay for one or two of your positions that you're asking.
Yeah, that's the cumulative amount of
Yeah, it doesn't,
overpayments.
doesn't talk about all the ones that was written off, right, over the years.
So as we look at overpayments, we look at the causes: late notice of separations, entry errors and hours worked, late notice of leaves, changes in positions where we know there's those gaps that happen for late reporting, and it's something that we train on, we audit on. We know it's a priority.
How do you collect it?
We follow the state law,
And the state,
and
will-
it's something that's 25% we can claw back or take back.
who exactly does that? Who in DOE?
It's in my area.
It's in your.
It's
area.
in fiscal services, an area called operations. We have
Okay.
folks dedicated to,
But the 25%
Salary
is
overpayment.
minimal clawback, right? You still
The
can
max.
negotiate with the,
it's the max unless the employee is willing to pay back
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, but there is a set schedule of what you can take, right? If it's under
Yeah.
$1,000, you can take so much.
Yes,
And
Yeah.
it's $100 per paycheck
Yeah.
minimum. So what is it per paycheck that you guys are taking?
we follow the guidelines
So you're taking $100 minimum per paycheck.
unless we can negotiate more.
Can you verify that? Because your amounts is still very high. And according to the directive that was sent out by
tags.
DAGs, it actually says to minimize and prevent salary overpayments, require timely recording of all leaves and earned and taken. Staff responsible for leave records should post all Form G1's application for leave absence within 5 days of working days of receipt. And then for employees whose cumulative paid leave balances fall below 10 working days, a vacation of 10 working days or sick leave, departments and agencies should individually monitor and track the employees' paid leave balances to ensure that a salary overpayment does not occur. Are you guys doing that?
We have extra requirements around review of records when balances are dipping.
No, but are you following this directive? Because it doesn't seem, if you did, we wouldn't be in the situation to have this high. And you're not the only ones, you're second highest, I think.
I don't want to minimize it is a significant amount of funds. We do have those multiple reasons. Those are our short-term solutions, or the trainings, the audits, the trying to streamline our procedures, process improvement on
Right,
collections.
you're giving me all of these things. I'm asking specifically, can you show us that all of the people, and one time you guys did provide it, and you had one employee owing like $5,000 in overpayments, and they were collecting like less than $25.
We can translate our report that we provide to the comptroller by name, by amount,
And
as to how our
because
status on
it's
collections.
schools, right? This is done by schools, not by systems, right? So each school supposed to know that, and have timely records. And if they know it's under 10 days, they're supposed to put them on manual, individual, right? That's by school, per
Yeah.
school. And the schools aren't that big, so it's manageable.
So I listened to the conversation that you had with DAGs and their challenges with this. We have similar challenges. If I could,
Well, DAG says
For a
it's up
minute.
to each department, and you guys are
Yeah.
supposed to do.
so we have those short-term strategies, the training, the audits, and so forth. Longer term, we would like to do more modernization work. It's integrating our HR, our leave records.
Yes, and I've heard that for like over a decade.
Yeah.
Ryan, you know that.
Hopefully not from us. We had intended to be part of the state's effort on leave
Guys.
accounting. We got set aside on that project a few years ago.
But
And-
if staff is responsible for leave records, should post all forms, GI ones, within 5 working days of receipt. Are you guys doing that?
I'm sorry, what was I?
Staff responsible for leave records should post all form G1's application for leave of absence within 5 working days of receipt. Are you guys doing that?
We train on that.
Are you doing it? Is somebody checking to see that it's being done?
Okay, that
We,
means
we,
no.
we spot audit. I can't
Well, that's
sit
what.
here and tell you that all schools and all instances and
So
that
who's
everyone is,
responsible to make sure that
Yeah,
that's
where's the
you're following the
compliance?
directive and you're complying with it.
it's a shared responsibility between our office, internal
So who-
audit
who
and
is
schools
held
to maintain.
responsible?
Yes. Superintendent who?
Ultimately, Senator, I think I'm the one responsible for whatever needs to be done in the department.
So what?
So I will follow up and
We have a system that relies on
Can we
timekeepers.
ask
Yeah.
Superintendent. So superintendent also says cumulative paid leave balances that fall below 10 working days. The departments and agencies individually monitor and track those employees' paid leave balance to ensure that they happen. So will you commit that you're checking and doing both of these things?
I'll-
And tell us who's accountable and
So-
give us the records
I'll do my best, Senator, to get that, to take a look into that and get that information to you,
to the committee.
to the committee.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Okay, 52.
52. Requests 1 evaluation specialist and 3 in the first year, and 3 additional evaluation specialists in the second year for dedicated research evaluation unit in our planning office.
What are they evaluating?
Elizabeth Higashi. So based upon our CGCS report, we want to establish this function back into the department and evaluate our functions and programs. It's something that we feel is in need in regards to taking a better look and doing our own research in regards to the initiatives and making sure.
Yeah.
I think it's something we haven't been doing in a while.
I know, but why do this when you guys already have an audit division? Why
But-
can't the audit division do this?
So this is looking at program evaluation
Yeah.
in regards to our student outcomes and the program in regards to the
Yeah, so
audit.
the audit division should be doing more like performance audits, management audits.
We're set up to do fiscal.
Yeah, I know. I don't think that's enough. Because then the audit division should be constant giving you feedback as to where you can improve. Because the department is so big and there's really nobody and the board is too busy for that. Looking into all the programs, looking into the complex areas, looking into sports, and making sure that things are being run properly or there's efficiencies, that management is doing well. Because all these things you keep adding, there's really no audit on it. And unless we ask the legislative auditor to go look at it, nobody's looking at it. So instead of adding new positions, we should be asking the audit division, which I think is attached to the board, right? Not at one point it was attached to the board, then I think a previous board delegated it back to you, and then I think you're delegating it back.
Yes.
And so that kind of report should be, useful for the board as they make decisions, but also useful for us.
So how many people are in the research and evaluation unit?
Right now, it doesn't exist, so we don't have any. So
We
these
don't
would be
have
new
any.
positions to
Yeah.
establish
So this is one person to establish this whole unit.
No, one,
in the first year,
And-
and then 3 in the following year.
And they address,
Regarding looking at research in regards to what are the initiatives for the department in regards to also looking at our data analysis, and really we want to hone in more on what are the things that are programs that are contributing to our student outcomes, and where should our investments be.
but isn't that what you folks should be doing when you create these programs and people who are administering it? Isn't that part of the overall, instead of having a outside person?
no, this is internal.
This is for internal. We want to bring this
No, I know, but
internal.
I'm just saying, you're bringing in the person who is actually putting on all these positions, all these programs that you want evaluated. They're the very ones that know the programs and should be looking at, did it meet what we had intended? Instead of having to hire one person to come in and learn about, okay, why did you guys put this together now? Why did you have this program? Can you give us the numbers? Shouldn't that be done with the groups that's doing the program?
I think there are components of that are being done, and this is something where we want to put an investment in regards to enhancing it.
How many people in the audit division now?
5 others.
Because then, like I mentioned, I mean, why keep growing when you can have the audit division do this? They can do management, performance, not just fiscal audits.
Right, I'm thinking back to the time when we had one auditor, and it was over a decade ago, and the addition of because of the wisdom of the legislature to add those, and the improvement that we've seen in compliance, fiscal compliance. I'm just trying to make a pitch for, it's been very helpful to have that unit to reinforce fiscal and the compliance.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying we're
side.
taking it
So
away.
I don't wanna-
It should mirror the
I do-
legislative auditor focusing on DOE. I mean, that's what they're basically doing here. You evaluate programs.
So is this person going to evaluate, or say you have this person, going to evaluate the kindergarten assessments? Which I'm going to ask about as to where did that go and what was the outcome?
That'll be one.
It-
That'll be one.
It could be definitely, I think that would be the purpose of these positions in regards to looking at
So
all
without
different
this position,
priorities.
You're not going to be able to tell me what about that? About how effective this kindergarten assessments were, because I remember having many concerns about it, and you folks invested how many millions? $1 million?
We can definitely address that concern, Senator. And we can speak to the kindergarten assessment too, if you'd like us to.
Just one question. So currently, you don't evaluate your programs then, if you're gonna have to set up a unit to do this? What are you doing now? What have you been doing?
You want to, so currently we do have evaluations that happen. I think what we want to do is bring it to consistency and also increase the level of our evaluations. I think that's definitely the intent of us reinstating this function. It's something that's happening at different levels in different ways, and it's something that we want to improve on.
So who does it now? And you can bring them together.
They don't do it.
He says he does it.
It's right now happening at very different levels by all the different program managers at the program manager level, and they all work on different requirements. So for example, some of our federal programming do
Yeah,
have
But that's-
evaluation
that's a
criteria.
that's a requirement of the federal program though. But on state programs, who's doing it?
Right now, it's the responsibility of each program manager that's in charge of those state programs.
Shouldn't that be it though? Shouldn't that be?
But there's no clear requirement that those managers do an evaluation.
Not,
I think
Not that I can-
we're looking for consistency across the board. There was a unit that existed several years ago that has been defunded about a decade ago and during bad times, and this is to sort of to get back to that level. I would also say that there is ad hoc evaluation. Every budget cycle is an evaluation, as we did this year with our budget
Yeah,
review.
but
We
you know
looked at
what
all
we don't have is
programs.
performance evaluation.
It's just not as systematic and across the board as we're talking about here.
So we're gonna get better budget valuations once you get this, that you're gonna have more of that data coming in?
That would be our hope, is that it would help inform resource decisions.
Yeah, except you just said earlier, the audit function now is fiscal, so that should be automatic.
From a fiscal compliance, risk management perspective. Financial risk, reputational risk, that sort of thing is the internal audit function. This is more programmatic.
Yeah, I know.
Outcomes.
There's no system-wide look at how is DOE doing so that there is an ongoing evaluation of how are we performing, are students doing better, but who's doing what across the board?
I would suggest there is, I think on our website, if you go to the budget website and the DOE, there's links to a lot of audits. It's just not as systematic and comprehensive as
Yeah,
what we're trying
but
to
the audit's done by whom?
establish.
By the current audit division?
Who
Who's
does-
doing all those audits?
It may be federal, it may be your monitoring and compliance, it may be in response to legislative inquiry, reports.
Yeah, it's just ad hoc. It
We've
depends
done
on the condition of
evaluations,
funds or the
but it's
legislation
fine.
or.
It's not consistent.
But your audit division is not responsible for auditing across the board.
Can they give us a white paper and show us, like, when you say, use words like systematic, what do you mean? Once a month, once a day, once a week? How many programs gonna get audited or reviewed? You know, let's use these general terms when in fact, it's like, you know, who knows best on what's happening in the classroom and the data? The teacher, right? The teacher knows best. It's like, how do we know about what food the kids are throwing away? No, we need a software to do it. No, we need a consultant to do it. It's like we keep relying on all these other kinds of people to do the data when it can be easily collected without costing the taxpayers more money for more bodies. Right?
But so for instance, you guys, there was that article about you receiving an F for farm to school. I mean, you know, we just, if that, we should have had somebody looking at that much sooner. As soon as those positions were created, a year after evaluating it every year, before you wait till like this article, how many years later? That's what I mean, going back to performance audits and measurement audits, and that's the kind of stuff the audit division should be doing. And you probably would save you so much grief if you guys had your own auditors doing it. I mean, the board's auditors doing it versus you waiting for an article like that to happen. There should be metrics and evaluations occurring regularly. You know, and then some of these people, they get promoted and nobody ever evaluated them. They end up in different places.
How much bodies we have in the audit position that you guys
I
have?
said 5,
5.
but theirs is attached to the board, which makes sense because you need somewhat of a arm's length to look at it. The self-evaluation, you know, who's going to evaluate yourself?
And the current
Unbiased.
the current audit section, the audit division, they do there is a lot of things that they need to do. They do provide regular reports on how we're doing. as well
No,
as.
he just said it's fiscal mainly.
It is fiscal.
It's not performance
No,
based
it's fiscal.
or management.
The other thing that they do is they also coordinate and DOE hotline. That if there are any complaints that come in, it goes to the audit section, and they help to follow up and an internal audit if there are any allegations of misconduct.
Yeah, but mainly fiscal.
Fiscal.
Yeah.
And they do.
I'm talking about performance because, we're talking about adding all these new programs. And then you don't know if they're actually working or not, or if they're effective, or or maybe we should be putting more money in. Having an auditor on the side doing that helps not just you, but helps us.
I understand, Senator. Definitely the our audit section also not in the hotline issues that come in are not only limited to fiscal complaints, but also deal with personnel, deal with misconduct, harassment, and through that office, then coordinates with our human resources office.
But
so
even
that-
like having the audit office, they could look at the construction. Previously, we kept saying, "Hey, this thing's taking too long. Where all this much?" The auditor could have went in there, looked at the system, made recommendations until it gets so bad. Now we got to do a legislative fix, and we don't even have all the details. We're just coming up with what we think we hear anecdotally. So it's a missing component, which I think would be very useful, so that we're not waiting till the problem just gets too bad. And then you solve it and you don't really solve it. Because like, look at today, we tried to solve this whole construction thing, and then now we have SFA and OFO, and it's a mess. We just made it worse. So this performance evaluation has to become, I think, cultural.
Understood.
Okay, 53.
53 is two positions for the two communication specialists. Provide comprehensive communication support for state office complex areas and schools. 54 is HTSB, Hawaii Teacher Standards Board's requests for two additional positions.
And what are they going to do?
It's a business manager position and institutional analyst.
Because one of the things we wanted a couple sessions ago was for them to start certifying CTE and things like that. Get it going.
I believe this position also is to support the pre-apprenticeship program, which connects to CTE. I believe HTSB is focused right now on.
Okay, that's fine. I thought we had added a position in the past specifically for things like this.
To HTSB.
Yeah. Yeah. Because P20 wasn't moving. And P20 can do a lot of the same things, but there's no sense of urgency on P20.
We do work hand in hand, Senator, with P20 and.
I don't know if that's a good thing
to move things
to
forward.
brag about, because if there's no result. Yeah, we got to look at this then. If they can come in and tell us what did they do with the position we provided in the past.
We'll reach out to them. Thank you.
55 is seeking two additional positions for the board office in addition to their existing two professional staff. 56 is to add two perm FTEs for ed specialist, two positions, and an institutional analyst position for alternative programs branch. This is to focus on the incarcerated students and students living in residential facilities.
Yeah. And Camilla and I went to go see the McKinley School. So they have curriculum for this group and for the those who have been released. So that was good.
58 is seeking non-payroll dollars or operating funds for the Board of Education. 59 is an institutional analyst 2 position for Sorry. Focus on leadership, learning development. This is in the communications office.
But how is this different than the other two positions you're asking for communications? So this would be three positions for communications.
This position is to help coordinate our various events with communication. We are as we move forward on
How many people in communications now?
I,
4 plus a director.
these positions would while we're getting that, Senator, the positions will help us to coordinate. We are national conferences that we're hosting here in Hawaii, as well as various other conferences, early learning, creative media, artificial intelligence. Those are all regular conferences that we hold annually.
Okay, so you're gonna go from 5 to 8.
Yes.
Many more conferences.
No,
you've
the
got-
that's a huge percentage.
The other two positions though are not for, the other positions that we're requesting is not for, is different from this. The other two positions deal primarily with communicating. They work on our website, our reach out to the community, connecting with schools.
What are you doing now? Aren't you doing
communications.
that now? Aren't you doing those functions now?
With the size of our organization, we do need additional support to help ensure
You're five
that,
now,
yes,
and you're doing all of that work now.
we are doing with the 5 plus we need the additional two or three positions.
But the 5 is doing the work now.
They're doing a great job, but they're struggling. It's
Wait.
difficult.
But
Are
when
they
you
working overtime?
No, we try to as much as
Okay.
possible.
We don't pay overtime
Not
for those
overtime.
positions, but
But
they're working overtime.
They do, but yes.
that's just a big jump. You know, that's 60%.
Mhm.
I think the department, we are, I think, as a whole, the organization, not at the state office, but the complex and the schools are doing a wonderful job. And I think it's important that we communicate our successes out to the general public. If we're really looking at transforming public education and changing the narrative of that Hawaii is moving forward, we are making great strides thanks to the work of the schools and the complex areas and the support for partners. I think the communication component is really important.
But isn't the best communication is the results in their performance and the number of kids being graduated and all of that stuff? The proof is in the pudding, right? I mean,
It is.
propaganda that you want to keep putting out there. I'm not saying you're doing propaganda, but pretty much that's what media people do. They fluff everything up. So, I mean, yeah, it's good to have, but again, at what is cost?
I wouldn't characterize our sharing out as propaganda. We are okay. We are really trying to get information out in a timely manner. We do have 258 schools, and they try to also get information out, but communicating through a common point with folks that have the relationships with media, I think is really important. And so
But you have 5 people doing it now.
for the whole system,
Yeah.
yes.
5 people doing it now.
And we really need the additional support though.
And this is number what, 55
No,
on the priority list?
59.
59 on the priority list, so it's not that high up. Okay. Right?
Okay, 60.
60 and 61, these are 2 positions for our policy office. The first one is manage critical policy. The second one is to assist with policy legislation and project management of survey requests. 62 is an additional human resources officer for classified recruitment. We lack adequate staffing in that area. 63 is another human resources officer too for teacher recruitment.
But I thought there was an earlier request for several positions for HR.
All these ads.
Yeah.
Right, now I gotta look for it.
Um,
Yeah.
Chan-
Oh, 8 positions
The eight positions are specifically around the processing of applications and onboarding new or applicants, background checks and such to get people into the jobs. These positions, these two lines are specifically for recruiters to go out and get people to apply. So for example, the teacher recruiter was responsible for creating the J1 program for teachers to recruit teachers from the Philippines.
Okay, so how many people total now in Sean Beacon's shop?
We'll have to get back to you
We
on
can
that.
get that information to you.
Okay. Okay, next.
64 is FTEs only in relation to the alternative learning program. We have dollars and we need to create the positions to actually do the work. Okay, down to the last two. It's not, we don't have a department priority number because these last two were added in at the governor review level. The first one is for lease rent maintenance costs in relation to commitment 3. It was something that it was requested in the CIP budget that in the governor's review, it was folded into our operating budget.
But you don't
had a
care.
chance to
You don't care where it
prioritize.
goes. You don't care if it's CIP or A funds. I mean, you asked for it in C funds.
I don't think we have a strong opinion if it's in the CIP or the operating budget, but I think it's important it's general funds so that we can use it for,
Okay.
non-bond purposes.
And then, okay, and the fringe is.
And the next one is just fringe for pass through for the neighbor island R&M support positions
Okay.
in DAGs.
And the rest are what? The FAs.
So the rest are simply federal fund ceiling increases, followed by collective bargaining being folded in, previously approved collective bargaining. So I just suggest for all the federal funds, you can see what those ceilings relate to. A lot of times it's just truing up. It's not necessarily additional funds we're receiving. It may be just catch up because we may have in prior years been getting federal funds and having to work with the governor for ceiling. So.
Okay, members' questions?
I have questions.
Yeah,
So
Senator LaFont.
Thank you. I have a question on table 16, your CIP lapses. But I know, Superintendent, in your opening remarks, you said you're going through sort of a change in terms of how you're looking at projects. So there's a lot of lapses that you have and a lot of funds that we have appropriated. How did the department decide which funds to lapse? And are some of these funds going to be put in your bulk overall statewide funding in terms of your priorities that you showed on that previous slide?
Thank you very much for the question, Senator. I believe we did look at various to identify those projects. There was a vetting process. So I'll let Director share about the vetting process.
Yes, good question, Senator. With respect to the list itself, we did look at basically whether or not, as you can see, some of it projects were completed. For the ones that were not, that we didn't have enough monies for, which says insufficient funding, that's where we said, like, basically that's where we would look to lapse because the magnitude of it would be way much more in terms of what it needs. And so we are looking at some of these that have design already. Some of them are construction, some are design. The ones that have had design already in progress, we are looking at that and putting that into our buckets that the superintendent talked about. And so looking at that within each of its appropriate category and putting it into that bucket.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Senator Kim.
So when did the decisions to lapse, when did you make that decision?
I believe it was ending part of last year.
Ending part of last year, so
That is correct.
a year ago, approximately a year ago.
Like a couple months ago.
Oh, any part of this 2024
This, for this,
for this list?
this
Table
table
16,
16 list,
yeah.
that is correct.
It was made in October, November.
October, November.
Were the schools notified?
Not immediately, but they were notified thereafter.
At when, at what point?
Um, I would have to get back to you on that, Senator.
Because we've sent out CIP requests to the schools. And if they knew that these were lapsed, they might have asked for it to be reinstated. But I haven't seen that lapse. And then when you say insufficient funding to complete the project, does it mean the project started and you just don't have enough to complete, or you don't have enough to even start it? The kind of justification or reason is really not enough for us to understand. And how do we know if they're planning done?
I can get back to you on that, Senator.
So you guys don't know.
For each one, who would have a different, I guess, different situation on
Isn't
it.
that why we give you this box with lots of spaces and reason, and you give us one line? So now we gotta ask you, you gotta go back. I mean, you should know that we're gonna ask you that, right? Because a lot of these are in people's district. Like here's one for Mililani High School. Insufficient funding, insufficient space. So if there was insufficient space, why would they have even budgeted the money?
The $6 million.
Yeah, $6 million. Almost enough space.
So these are all line items, projects,
Yeah.
legislative line item projects.
I think the communication would be useful though, because especially if this happened in the first year, we can make the changes in the second year to the language. So,
Schools.
or cut it from the budget and appropriate it somewhere else before the biennium is over.
Understood.
What about all the lapse from I thought you had like $1 billion worth of funds that you couldn't complete the projects. What happened to all of those? There was like $1 billion, and then there was another $1 billion that were possible lapse. What happened to all those projects? I have that list somewhere in my office.
So for the projects that lapsed,
No, these are projects that you folks started and you couldn't complete because the costs have gone up. So you have like $1 billion worth of, not all of them is that, but you have this of $1 billion projects that were, what was that, encumbered, but not complete.
Yeah, this is
Where is all those projects?
we can definitely get a list to you, Senator, but basically it would be projects that are actually in the pipeline.
Right, but some of them have been in the pipeline for years. And the reason you gave us last year was that
No, I know.
you didn't have enough funding to complete it. And we specifically said, you need to look at these projects and come back and tell us what it's gonna cost to complete. Have you guys done that?
It's great.
I apologize. I was not part of that
But
discussion.
somebody was. Superintendent, you were part of that.
That was me,
discussion.
Senator, yes. I was there. We will go back and revisit that and get that information to you. My apologies for that.
Concern is you got these projects that are there, you don't, and you're coming in for new stuff, well, you never even take care of your old stuff. And that's what happened last year. You came in with all these requests, and then a lot of them are getting lapsed because, yeah, we requested for all of this, but you know, it's like these projects get encumbered, but it's just lingering. And I don't know when it's gonna get completed if you're not asking for monies for that, and you're asking us for new stuff. So shouldn't we take care of the basic first, the foundation, what was passed earlier and encumbered?
But some line items members put in and they're guessing.
Yeah, I know those, but these are encumbered projects I'm talking about now.
Oh, okay.
Encumbered, they're all, but $1 billion of encumbered projects.
Oh.
I think, Senator, there was a time that the department we were successful in getting projects done and completed and moving. And then
See, if you had that audit, like I'm talking about,
then things changed. And so what we want to do is, Senator, get back to a place where we were.
No.
I totally understand what you're saying, though.
And you've said that well. However, you pretty much don't even talk about this billion what's sitting over here, and you're not asking to anything to address it. So I would like to see
Okay.
that projects and how have you addressed it, and did we even move? Because we asked you that last year.
Yes.
But
I'll get that information.
But how many of those projects are encumbered, but then they don't have sufficient funding because construction costs went up? So then what's the next step?
That's
You
what
end
I'm
up,
asking.
what,
You're asking for
unencumbering
money.
and lapsing? Because some are gonna be part of your lump sum that you encumbered, and some are gonna be part, like, individual line items. Because then that probably has to get cleaned up, because I mean, costs are different. I don't know how long ago some of that was.
A while, so. I have the list in my office. Can you provide a new updated list?
So is that your intention if in fact you have projects that are ongoing and you have insufficient funding, that you're putting it into a lump sum to complete projects? And can we have a list of those so that we know which projects are going?
I think it depends, right? So,
Yes.
because I mean, we all know some of this is, maybe not as urgent as some of the health and safety issues, things. Like, there's one here, like I saw Moanalo High School has a multi-purpose innovation center. I'm not even sure what the design of that looks like, but it's $4 million. And then in other areas,
But we're talking about the encumbered ones.
yeah,
This-
no, I know, but we're
this
just
is,
talking
the
about,
lapse. These are
in
the-
other areas, you have other things like air conditioning. And air conditioning repairs for Waipahu Intermediate, 200,000 lapsed. How expensive was the air conditioning repair? That is it's 200,000 is not enough.
How much more did they need?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to look at the
Yeah,
specifics for.
I mean, no, don't go through that, but I'm just thinking that I would think some of that is more of a priority than maybe new buildings at schools that, you don't have a high user base for it.
Sure. So follow up to that, for like tennis resurfacing or play courts or ball fields, couldn't you just do sort of an indefinite contract to one contractor and then give them X amount of projects to complete rather than school by school? Or is that a procurement issue?
Yeah, we would have to look at that from a procurement standpoint.
Well, it's how we budget it too.
Yeah.
Yes,
'Cause I know at the city, you could do that. I don't know if we could do that at the state.
No, see, the problem that they have is once it's in a line item, you can't really move it. And so if it's written wrong, like if you don't add appurtenances, for instance, you could kill the whole project because you didn't add that one word. Or if you're $1 short, now you just killed the whole project because they can't move money around when it's line item. So yeah, this is like a Rubik's Cube.
Just looking at this. So when I put in this money for Ilima Intermediate for the 6th grade wing, it's not a want, it's a need. That was the amount you guys gave the principal. They gave me, put in, but then money went lapse. So I can understand the project she's saying, construction wise, you guys don't have enough money to do the construction. But this is planning and design for a new building that we should have had 10 years ago. We put in the money that you tell the principal we need, and then you tell us here that the money lapsed because construction costs and all of that. But this was just in the planning and design stage.
Yeah, but you know what, though, going back to what I said, that is part of the problem, right? Because the principal doesn't understand the construction cost. So even though
But that's what they got from whoever they went ask or CAS, whatever. That's what they got.
the CAS doesn't know the construction cost. See, that's what
They're giving information to our principals there.
So that's what I'm trying to say. As far as the training, you don't include some of that. And so we're getting information that we trust from, some principals or CASs, but they don't have the cost estimates.
They get told last minute they're going to delete the lights like at Farrington. They're going to delete the bleachers.
Yes, but then I like no, so that I can't put them back in because we need the 6th grade wing. Our elementaries are overcrowded. I like know what is the exact cost for the planning and design. Since you guys saying that the CAS and the principal don't know, Somebody had to tell
Yeah,
the kids.
I mean,
How much the money?
yeah, most of them wouldn't.
Also put it now, when they get around to doing it
Yeah.
3 years from now, if the cost is escalated.
No, but you know, the challenge is they're telling us to go to the CAS, so like, maybe you gotta get one sheet, because you're gonna been on this per year of school for I don't know how long, and then the project no move because somebody went on vacation. Like, who the next person in line? And then now you guys go, now you here, and I'm trying to explain to you again, mangrove growing out of the roof of the, like, this is like super frustrating, because we're trying to cut corners, and I said, the individual don't even have to put in one repair and maintenance to DAGs, because when I went to DAGs, it's not even there. So, you know, the rural areas, of course, gotta go Hana take supplies. You drive out there, you got turned on in 2 hours and get back out. You know, it's just super frustrating that if you can send me to the CAS and they don't know what they're doing, maybe gotta fire the CAS. I don't know, but gotta clean it up. It's super frustrating. I mean, we've been told, even like with you guys, with other stuff, like we beefing over the librarian. I just went back on, and it's the librarian herself telling them she's not gonna be over there working in there for service to middle school kids. So I don't know who's the tail and who's the head, but this is why some of the kids are like, we don't understand what's going on. And I'm trying to figure out if the principals are actually trained to do the right thing or know what.
They're putting a lot of money in for training for the principals.
Yeah, and we'll continue to do training for principals to your question centers about CASIT, the complex care superintendents. The complex care superintendents and the principals, for the majority of them, wouldn't be in a position to be able to determine how much is needed for a CIP
Yeah,
project.
so when he was principal, he made sure that the number was 3 times as much.
I'm not gonna say my cousin's name, but he met with our principal. Every year I asked, what is our CIPs? And that's when they gave principals, because I was told that I gotta talk to the CAS. So the CAS went and met with the principals. He gave the list of how or estimated of these construction costs. So that's the reason why I came up with the number. None of the numbers that I ever gave to my colleagues or my community that did not come over, I just make up the number. You know what I mean? So I just,
Yeah,
So,
Yeah,
so,
no, but-
I understand what you're saying, Senator. So it's really important that
there's only 1 or 2 people that we can get numbers from. And
Yes.
right now it's gonna be Audrey and JD. That's it. I mean,
No, but even prior, they gave us the number. So I made my own inflation rate on them.
and still wasn't
Because-
enough.
Yeah, and still wasn't enough. So I was like, what can I live at? And because I come from the smallest school on Molokai, so I would inflate my numbers based on transportation costs, on rising costs, wages and everything, and still not enough. And they still screw them up. So like, what is it? And I never went 3 times like how you did with yours, but I was reasonable. I'm a reasonable person.
as Chair said, we do have a new Director for Facilities Development Branch and Assistant Superintendent Hidano has knowledge in construction. And Deputy Superintendent and our new Deputy Superintendent Dean Uchida has also background in construction and cities. So I think we
Yeah,
have a
but
good
that's
team
where going
now.
back to the
Moving
training,
forward.
you gotta let them know that, okay, all of these estimates gotta go through
Yes.
one division.
And we have communicated that to the field, especially now that Facilities Development Branch is meeting with the principals and the complex care superintendents. I think you're right, Senators, that the communication hasn't been the best, going back both ways. That's definitely something that we're working towards improving. And not only within the department, but together with you.
So
It's
I just
really
like say
important.
this then, because if you guys are gonna do that, when the community come bitch to me, I'm gonna let them know that it's the principal's responsibility versus me trying to prioritize this and set what the cost is. Because what comes back is, I walk in the store, just forget milk, or should I say eggs that we no more anymore,
You get attacked.
and I stayed there for 4 hours explaining your principal's job is to do this and have that conversation. And it's not the case.
We'll again, continue the discussion with our principals and be sure that, we.
Please
work
do,
together.
because sometimes you talk to them and nobody's home.
We'll continue to work together with them and, with, Facilities Development Branch. We are also trying to be sure that our positions that are.
Sorry, but just in case they forget what they look like,
Yes.
I'm gonna send them a
So,
picture.
so let me just say this, Superintendent.
Yes.
I hope somebody is writing down the concerns we've raised, because when you address all these positions that you want, all this money, none of the concerns you raise are addressed that's going to solve it. And you come back year after year. And so that's what's frustrating, because you're asking us for communication position, you're asking us for evaluation position. Yes, we're having all these issues, and where is the attention going for that? It's not. So, somebody needs to be writing this thing down. And then next year when you come and say, yeah, this issue was, this is what we've done with this issue, or this is the position we need to resolve all of this. But you guys don't do that. You just come in and ask for positions that you folks think you need, when we're saying these are the problems that we're having in the community, in the schools, that come back to us.
Thank you, Senator. We do have, folks here as well as online back at our offices. They are, writing everything down.
But that's what they did last year and the year before, right? But we.
Yeah, but they have 5 communication people writing stuff down.
I know.
Do you guys have positions for extra positions for facilities, or is it just deputy superintendents and JD?
But isn't there going to be a bill to restructure, and that now construction is going to have a different approach?
There is a, part of our budgetary ask is for an assistant superintendent, that sits in the, under.
So there's not,
Deputy
you're
Chief.
reorganizing internally and just going to ask for the budget. And there's no bill.
We ever go? Reorgan. Yeah, so we are doing a realignment within the department, to look at.
Yeah.
positions
So
and how
construction
they
and
affect it.
facility maintenance is going to be one on its own now.
Facilities is on
And
one
then
side,
food,
and hopefully food,
Security,
transportation on that side, because both of them are currently are all together. So, we have,
So you think this reorg is going to help solve some of the issues?
definitely will be able to get more eyes on, different concerns that have arisen, not only in facilities, but also with, transportation,
Yeah, it's security.
food, and security, safety, security, yes.
So is this reorg is going to address the issue about having engineers, outside engineers sitting at school
I
real property?
think ultimately, Senator, we do want to get to a point where, we have all of our positions and our folks there and our.
No,
within
I'm
the
talking
department.
about outside
Yeah.
consultants
Yes.
sitting in DOE offices, looking and acting like they're DOE employees.
So we do, contract with, various organizations to help support us at this point, to be able to do the work that we need to do.
But do they have
We-
a desk in one of the DOE offices?
Yes.
They do. Yes.
How many of them?
5.
Why? Because the airports had the same thing for decades. They had 5 from RM Towel, from Bowers and Kubota. These are selective people that are getting special treatment by being able to sit there with the people that are determining the projects. And they're not paying rent. They're sitting there sounding like they belong to DOE, and they're not. They're outside contractors. How do you justify that?
So, their fees are negotiated separately. So because, in terms of indirect costs and everything, their total margins are reduced because they're going to be at our site. They are supervised by, our staff accordingly. We have, again, 3,
So how many people sit there? 5 from different companies?
we have 3 in our project management section and 2 in our construction management section.
Doing what?
So in they're doing project management.
But isn't that part of your folks' jobs with project manager?
Right, so they are assisting and supplementing with the amount of projects that we have.
On an ongoing basis, you have the same people there, whether they have a project or not?
They have projects. They have constant projects. It's not projects that one day they have it and another day they don't have it. As project management, as you know, it does take
But they're a
significant amount.
consultant though, they're not DOE project managers, right?
They are a consultant, they're licensed, and they provide their technical wherewithal
Yeah,
in working
engineers
with
doing
ourselves.
their-
Engineers and architects.
And these engineers and architects are the one that do the projects.
They are overseeing the project management of the project.
overseeing
Like,
the project.
they are similar to our staff.
So they oversee other contractors.
Not
Yes.
their own.
No, not their own.
So they have projects too, though?
They have projects.
They
that
have
they-
projects, but they're not overseeing their project, they're overseeing somebody else's project.
They're not overseeing their company's projects.
And they're overseeing somebody else's project.
Correct.
Can you see what the problem is with that?
But it's still managed overall by our staff.
Who on your staff manage them?
It's headed up by our project management, public works manager,
So you
but they have but they go under each individual unit.
So you have a public works manager and you have managers that manage oversees the managers who then oversees the companies. You see this problem? I mean, that's what the airport was doing then. That's wrong. That is wrong.
They are equivalent to like our licensed engineers or architects.
Yeah, but they have to compete for these projects. And you're having these.
Well, they're not
select
doing the
individuals.
design for the project. They are
But their company is doing design for some project.
first projects, but under other project managers.
Yes, but they
It
get
could come across that they're getting inside information
Correct.
sitting there.
special treatment when there's, how many engineer companies are there out there? And they're not getting the same special treatment. That's not right.
We'll definitely look into the concern, Senator. I think one of the things we want to be sure to do is to be able to keep the work going and the churn going.
Trust me, the airports is the same thing. And for decades, they finally got rid of them and they're still churning out because you cannot have these people, they got to rent their own space somewhere else, not eating lunch and talking story with the DOE people that make the decisions ultimately on some of the projects. That's a conflict of interest, total conflict of interest. Have you read this by ethics? That's a total conflict of interest.
Okay, we will check.
When you guys getting these consultants constantly being renewed, does it go out to procurement? I mean, anybody else, when any other consultants can come in and put in one bid to be the consultants for the DOE, or these guys just stay there blanket and then they just get these? Because I know Bowers and Kubota have been doing a lot of the projects in our area, but do other other companies ever put in to have the same opportunities to do some of the projects in DOE?
Right?
So it is through the procurement process. It does go through a procurement process.
So, but don't you pick some of these people from the list? They don't actually bid?
So
Consultants or project
so
managers?
through the procurement process, it's professional services. So it's different from construction. Unless
So you have a list of hundreds of people that is gonna.
qualified professional,
And you can pick one, right?
we go through a review and
Right.
we qualify three
You
and
guys
then,
do it, right?
yes.
They don't do a bid. So you can pick the same people over and over again, right?
We can go through that process and
Right.
selecting what we
Same
believe
people.
is correct.
The same 5 people that you have there, right?
Well, not
So
necessarily the 5
Yeah,
people.
but you have that, and that's the problem, because it's not a fair system. It's not like they're all bidding and you're picking them. They come from this professional list that you folks, and they have a relationship with you folks already, because they're there every day. They're talking how, bringing in coffee, bringing in pastries, right? I mean, that goes on.
So they're selected from the list from the state procurement office.
Through the professional services. So
Okay.
every
So they
year
don't bid.
consultants have to submit their qualifications for their various categories.
So those.
And then we
those
go through
people
a
are not
review.
bid.
It's not a bid. That is correct. It's not construction.
So after you choose the top 3, then what happens? Is there a committee that,
So a committee does that selection and makes the recommendation.
who's on the committee?
It depends on the project or
The same people that's in that office.
so again, it just depends on the project. But we do have qualified staff that can sit on these committees.
So for the consultants, what is the sunset dates on projects that they're doing? So that you guys go back to the list and look for, I'm not saying look for different one, but consultants again, how long one project or how much times a consultant in you guys building, how much jobs that they do or non-construction jobs that they do while they're there? They do 10 and then it goes back out. You guys look at the list, or is a recurring position with the same consultants?
It is basically like staff, right? So if
So how
staff
long
is
the
assigned,
contract then? So for
I would have to double check how long that contract is and how long the
Is it per project or
extensions.
just?
No, it's not per
duration?
project.
no, it's almost like
duration.
contract hire, and then for a certain period of time.
Correct.
But I'm not. Does it vary, or is it at the same period of time? Every 6 months, every year?
I would have to double check that.
Yeah.
Does the department have a plan to phase that out? So you hire civil
This is the first
service?
time we're talking about it, so I don't know.
But this
There's
is not the
maybe a-
first time we found this going on in state
Right.
government, and we have to clean it up.
I was,
If it's new.
I'm just curious to know if they have a plan. Do you guys have a plan?
Definitely, we want to have our employees in those positions to be able to do the work, our own folks.
Where it's not contract, how it is now?
Contracted,
Okay.
Definitely. But moving forward, currently, that work needs to get done. So I understand what you're saying. But we are where we are at this point. And we want to be sure to hire more architects and engineers that will be able to do the job, that we currently don't have. Yeah, and so, we have, worked together with, strategies to address compensation so that we can attract more folks into the department so that we can fill those positions.
But
to
you
move
don't
away
need
from what we-
engineer with a degree to do project management. That's the same issue we've raised with DAGs and with airports. And they all acknowledge that same, that they need, and we talked about having
Project
University of
management
Hawaii,
positions,
yeah,
yeah.
project management positions because it pays less. And so how long have these people been sitting in the office, and these consultants, how long have this been going on?
I'm not,
I'm
we
not
can
sure.
get back to you, Senator, on that. I do want to,
Because if you're telling me that you guys are trying to change but the positions, but you folks, I'm sure it's been more than 5 years. It's been going on, but first we're hearing about this. So there's no attempt that we see that you're trying to hire project managers. So how can you phase it out if you're not proposing it?
but thank you, Senator. I do want to this, in fairness to,
Yeah, you know what? Why don't you guys go talk about it, evaluate, and then we can get some kind of either a subject matter, or we can figure it out when we have another opportunity for you guys to present.
okay, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna adjourn, and then we're gonna give the AG 10 minutes so that IT can set up. And then the AG is gonna present her budget. Thank you.
Thank you.